So we just got new reporting from Circana describing how pretty much everything is collapsing. Like the whole thing. The whole thing is just imploding. It's not good. It's not good. I'm seeing a pattern here. I tweeted out. As you can see, the chart, this was retweeted by Derek Strickland. But basically, it shows a graph of the console sales volume, or hardware sales volume, rather, over the course of the last 30 years, okay? And as you can see, there's waves. You can see there's spikes and moments where maybe it drops. Interestingly, like they sold a lot of hardware even in the wake of like the 2008 financial crisis. It was sort of a place for people to go for respite. They would go buy a console, you know. But as you can see, things have started to drop, specifically in the wake of COVID. They dropped a little bit around there, but you can also see literally right as this orange line starts to spike, sales start to plummet. And you can see that this is average selling price. As that's gone up, there's a pretty clear negative correlation. It's almost like when you raise prices egregiously, people stop spending money. They just stop. Strange how that works, isn't it? It's a mystery. But this report communicates a lot of the sales performance coming out of Black Friday. And Black Friday, at least in the States, is known for being the great consumerism holiday. It's where you go and you spend ridiculous amounts of money on things that you don't really need, but you do it because they're on sale. And it was apparently horrible. GameFile describes it as a nightmare November for video game console sales as the big three all drop. They all drop. What is this? Well, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo all sold fewer consoles in the US this November than in November 2024, according to Circana. Spending on game hardware for the month totaled $695 million, a 27% drop from last year. 27. Now, it's going to come as no surprise to you that the Xbox did not sell great. But even the PlayStation 5 and PS5 Pro, which were the top sellers of consoles, they even were struggling to move the same volume of units that they did last year, despite being on like a pretty solid sale. And this, bear in mind, is before some of the other stuff that we're about to discuss kicks in, because the DRAM pricing spikes, the cut manufacturing from all sorts of other vendors, all of this is going to impact pricing next year, and prices are going to spike. Like 2 weeks ago when the initial AI or the initial RAM price surge was hitting, you guys were asking, a couple of you were like, hey, I'm going to build a PC. I wanted to do it in the spring, but should I do it now? Are prices going to get better? Dude, I think prices are about to get way, way, way worse. Like way worse. I'm going to show you, but I think it's going to get bad. It hasn't really affected console prices directly. Xbox has raised prices on their stuff, but apparently that was mainly to hit the 30% margin target from the CFO of Microsoft, which is insane, but that's a separate video. The hardware price spikes, which will be hitting Microsoft hardware, PlayStation hardware, Nintendo hardware, phones, laptops, everything. That hasn't really kicked in yet because a lot of manufacturers are still relying on stockpiled stuff, and it just hasn't really kicked in yet. But next year it's going to be in full force. What else is there? It was the worst dollar amount in terms of spending on gaming hardware since November 2005. It was the worst November for hardware sales since 2005. You have to go back 20 years. The amount of actual consoles sold during the key holiday shopping month was even worse. 1.6 million units total amounted to the lowest reported by Circana, formerly NPD, since 1995's 1.4 million. The total number of individual consoles sold was the worst it's been in 30 years. 30. And that's with a steep sale on PS5s. Not great. Not great. 30 years. 30. That's how far back you have to go to get to volume this poor. The only reason the dollar amount is only the worst in 20 years is because, of course, the average cost of consoles has gone up. So, if you go back to 2005, you can see the average selling price is right here, right there. But nowadays, it's a good bit higher. And so you can have less volume because you're charging more, but still it's not a great indicator either which way. We're talking about the era of the Switch 2, Xbox Series X, and PS5 versus the era of the Super Nintendo, Sega Saturn, and original PlayStation. And the market and industry is way, way, way bigger today than it was 30 years ago. There's more people to buy these consoles than ever before. But I think what this shows is that, for one, they don't really have console sellers on the PS5 and Xbox side. Xbox perhaps did with Call of Duty, but they've now gone the publisher route. So there's literally no reason to buy an Xbox. You can buy a PS5 and still get access to all of the exclusives, quote unquote, that Xbox had. So the Xbox as a piece of hardware doesn't really make sense to anybody anymore. And in terms of the PS5, they have big games, but apparently not console selling games. I mean, this, like, Ghost of Yotei sold millions and seemingly, turned a profit very quickly and is doing just fine. But I mean, it's not moving consoles. It's not a good enough game for people to go and buy a console to play it, or everybody that was interested in it already has a PS5. They're good. I think there was a trend back with the PS4 Pro era where, like, pretty much every friend I had, we were all in college at the time, but every friend that I had that had a PS4 went and bought a PS4 Pro, and they like upgraded, and maybe they sold their PS4, or maybe they just, put that in their living room, and then the PS4 Pro went in their bedroom TV or whatever it was, or on their desk. But they upgraded. I don't think the same thing is happening in anywhere near the same volume this time around. I think a lot of people are chilling with what they've got. Because, like, yeah, the PS5 Pro is better, but, like, are you really going to be able to tell? And it's $750. Like, is it really worth the trouble? For a lot of people, it probably isn't. Detective Seeds, golly gee whiz willikers. My goodness, thank you. 20 gifted memberships over on over on YouTube. My goodness. Thank you. That's poggers. And Detective Seeds, I mean, you've gotten featured in a lot of articles the last 24 hours. Nice. It's pretty great. Pretty great. I've never been called an insider before, so that took me by surprise, but good to see you here, my friend. Appreciate you. And Izzy, thank you for the bits as well. Thank you. And everybody who just got a membership over on YouTube, get your booty in the Discord, because now you got a membership badge. You can get in there. You can connect your YouTube account to Discord and you can get in there. The Tom also asks, could this be the rise of cloud gaming? DC or PC owners maybe can afford all the RAM. Oh, DC data center owners can afford all the RAM. I think that there's a couple of things happening with all of this that I want to get into. Haha, welcome to the club. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy holidays to you too, my friend. Very generous. Thank you. I think what's happening with all of this is, shocker, we're almost certainly in a recession. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody, but we're almost certainly in a recession right now. And when people are struggling to pay their rent, they struggle to justify spending $70 on games and $700 on consoles. Hot take. Cancel me. I don't care. Just my opinion. So I think people are just being cautious with their money, and they're not going in there and spending crazy amounts of money on optional upgrades. In 2016, I think, that the PS4 Pro launched. I think in 2016 or 18, whatever it was, when they launched the PS4 Pro, things were relatively fine, like in terms of the economy and everything. And so I think a lot of people were like, yeah, I can afford to go and get that want. It's not a need, it's a want. I'll upgrade to the PS4 Pro and call it a day. Yes, it's better, but maybe you can't see the difference that well. But I'm going to get it anyways. I'm going to treat myself. That's just not happening this time around. It's just not. And I think part of it is broader economic conditions. The pricing is egregious, and a lot of people are frustrated by it. And I do think there is legitimately a push towards PC that we've seen over the last few years that's accelerating. And it's something even the CEO of Take-Two Interactive, the guys behind GTA 6, Strauss Zelnick, he even said, I think the future is much more open like on PC. I think that's where people are going. And frankly, on PC, you don't typically need to upgrade anywhere. Like you can skip a year very comfortably. You can skip 2 years or 3 years. And when you do need to upgrade, they're smaller, more incremental upgrades. At least it has been for a long time. If you are running with a 3060, 3070 or whatever, you're fine. You're fine. If you want to upgrade to a 40 series or a 50 series, you can do that. But you don't need to. And I think it's the same vibe and mentality on PlayStation and Xbox and Switch, where people are just like, I don't need to get one. There's nothing that's like that exciting, so I'm good. I think what's really telling is that these numbers would have been very different if GTA 6 were launching in November as well. But now there's no reason for those people to upgrade and to buy in. So they're probably just going to sit on it and wait till next November and then buy in. But these numbers are going to be really interesting when GTA 6 launches next year, because it would be very interesting if we're in like the throes of a deep, way more chaotic recession next year and people need to buy like $700 consoles to go and get GTA 6. You might actually see companies like Sony and Nintendo giving pretty steep discounts to get people in. But this is, again, the first big moment in the games industry in terms of actual spending, because what's happened is that price increases have gone up, but people are still buying a lot of games. But what the data now is suggesting is that people now are like, okay, I'm good. They're buying less games, and they are being much more careful with their dollars when it comes to hardware, especially. The dire November 2025 console numbers weren't just a case of just one console struggling. The news wasn't hot for any of them. Circana analyst Matt Piscatella broke things down for GameFile. This is all in terms of units sold. Xbox Series unit sales were down over 70% compared to last November. 70% year over year. PS5 down 40%. Well, 70% of 15 consoles is still a pretty big drop. Yeah, only 70%. 100% down to 30. Yeah, exactly. PS5 down 40%, and that was with a pretty steep discount. I don't think the Xbox was even on sale over Black Friday. They didn't even bother. They're like, who's going to buy it? So I don't think the Xbox was even on sale during Black Friday, at least in the States. PS5 down 40 with the discounts. And then the Switch plus Switch 2 were down more than 10% compared to just the Switch a year ago. How is that even possible? It's a new console, and when compared to just the Switch last year, which was at that point, what, a 7-year-old console? Just that 7-year-old console outperformed it last November when the old one and the new one are paired together. That's insane, dude. That's insane. That's right. Circana's data shows that even Nintendo, which launched the seemingly red-hot Switch 2 in June, went on to sell fewer Switch 1s and 2s combined this November than they sold Switch 1s last November. At least in Nintendo's case, is a big factor. Maybe that they sold a lot of Switch 2s since the system's June 2nd launch, a whopping 10 million units in the system's first 4 months. But November was bad. Why? Piscatella said, I certainly don't have all the answers here, but pricing seems to be one of the potential influencers. Imagine that. The price may have something to do with it. Of course, he doesn't have like a clear, it has to be the price. We can say that because we're offering our opinions. He's trying to be more analytical with it. But I think the price up certainly has something to do with it. We've seen over the last handful of years, companies raising prices, get greedier and greedier and greedier. And a lot of people have just gone along with it. They put it on a credit card. They don't think about it, whatever. You've seen it with phone manufacturers. Apple's done it. Samsung's done it. I mean, everybody's done it. And I mean, even with like companies like Starbucks and fast food restaurants, they're all doing it. McDonald's, now it's like freaking $30 for a burger. It's insane. But people have gone along with it until the last like 6 months, and now, especially in the gaming industry, it seems like this is where like the shoe drops, and it's like, oh my god, Klarna, yeah, the payments are all coming due. The average price of a console from the big three this November was $439, some 11% higher than a year ago. With price, however, there's also some added nuance, thanks in part to price promotions. PS5 was not actually more expensive this November versus last year. That's true. It was discounted, so it was actually cheaper this year than it was last year. But Xbox Series consoles were 30% more expensive, and Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 console prices were up 70% due to the newer device's higher price. Piscatella noted that one piece of gaming hardware that wasn't down from last November, that's the Next Playground, a box for motion-controlled games that was so hot this Black Friday that Circana said it outsold the Xbox, and it's a $250 console. I hadn't heard of this thing, but apparently this thing outsold all Xboxes, all of them. That's crazy. I've never heard of it, and I do this for a living. Like, what? What? What are we doing? What are we doing, fam? You know, Wave says the real reason why consoles are not selling is because they have no good games, exclusive games. It's not worth buying a console nowadays, to be fair. I mean, ultimately, I think it's pretty clear. If you have a Breath of the Wild, people will buy your console to play Breath of the Wild. But if you have a game that's like a solid 8 out of 10 or 8.5 out of 10, it's just not enough to get them to go out and spend hundreds when they're struggling to pay rent elsewhere. You know, they have lots of good games on the consoles, but apparently it's not enough for people to forego paying rent. Yeah, which they're already struggling with. A year of sticker shock. It's been a costly year to go shopping for a video game console. In October, GameFile noted that Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft had just issued 8 price hikes in 6 months, including 2 increases from Xbox Series hardware and 1 for the OG Switch. These increases followed the Trump administration's April announcement of tariffs on China and Vietnam, where many game consoles are manufactured. Tariffs were stiffer on China than Vietnam, causing rapid manufacturing shift to the latter country, according to a richly detailed Bloomberg report. I bolded this part for this added mortification. Okay. China's once dominant share of of US video game console imports fell from 86% in 2024 to less than 5% in May after Trump levied particularly punishing tariffs on the country. While electronics like smartphones were exempted from Trump's 2025 levies, game equipment was not so lucky. In May, importers of Chinese-made video game consoles were hit with an average tariff rate of 88%, which later dropped to about 30%. Meanwhile, tariff rates on Vietnamese imports hovered around 10% or less. In all, the US government estimates that it earned at least $325 million in tariffs on consoles and similar goods between February and August. Even with the shift of manufacturing to Vietnam, console makers are facing other pressures that could keep prices high for console customers. A late-year rise in cost of memory chips has sent Nintendo stock tumbling as investors fear the slimmer profit margins and analysts anticipate price hikes on electronics beyond gaming. Yeah. I mean, also paired with this is the other piece of it I wanted to discuss. NVIDIA has already clarified, as Nick Tech says here, NVIDIA is cutting gaming GPU production 30 to 40% in 2026. This means AMD has a perfect opportunity to gain market share as NVIDIA GPUs will skyrocket in price, and AMD GPUs could sell way more GPUs if they keep the prices at MSRP. But we all know AMD never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And I have a feeling AMD will still capitalize on this in the worst way possible. Yeah, they'll see NVIDIA raising prices and they'll raise theirs too. But this is this is such a big deal. I don't know how to describe it. Cutting GPU production does what? When there's less supply, but the demand largely stays the same, what will happen? Prices skyrocket. When that pairs with other things like the DRAM shortage, and they're cutting production, all of these companies, because AI and data centers and stuff can buy more for more. So why sell it to a gamer for $120 when you can sell it to a data center for $400? So then you charge gamers $450. And, if they buy it, great. If they don't, who cares? I think that this just is going to compound. So realistically, next year, building a console, building a PC, upgrading your GPU, if it's an NVIDIA one, AMD probably follows suit and raises prices, but upgrading an NVIDIA GPU, all of it is going to be significantly more expensive. We're talking 30, 40, 50%. In some cases, Samsung just raised the price of their memory that they're charging to people as much as double of what the initial price was. Like, it's hard to explain just how much things are going to skyrocket in price in the next 12 months. It's going to be insane. And this is precisely at a time where we can see the higher this goes, the less people are buying. And so I think the prices are going to continue to go up, and the sales are going to continue to plummet. This would be the most interesting thing, is if the whole point, like the goal for a lot of these companies has been wait for GTA 6, because GTA 6 comes out, all these people will buy a console just to play GTA 6, and then they'll buy some of our other games and accessories that'll help us. It'll be the water that raises all ships, the tide that raises all ships. If this gets as bad as it looks like at some point there's a scoff price. At some point, even for GTA 6, there's a price at which people are like, I still have a PS4. What do you mean the PS5 is now $950? What do you mean? I'm not doing that. I'll just build a PC. Wait, what do you mean a PC is now $2,000 for a mid-range one? Because RAM is $900 for 16 gigs. Like, what do you mean? But that's basically where we're headed. Like, it's all an absolute disaster. It's not great. It's not great at all. Not great at all. It's market manipulation. It's what happens when all investors around the world are convinced that one thing is going to save the global economy, and that's AI. And so they put every dollar they have into it, which inflates the pricing of everything involved with it because, inflationary pressures are basically generated by too many dollars chasing too few goods. And right now we have too few goods, but we have a lot of dollars. And it's all from like institutional investors and stuff. Will the Switch 2 go up much? I think everything will, because all memory, all DRAM, like all of these components that we're discussing that are used in every electronics device, whether it be a cell phone, whether it be a tablet, a gaming PC, a console, whatever, all of those devices rely on the same basic components. And all of those components are going up 30, 40, 50% or doubling in some cases. And it's like, okay, well then what's the fix? I don't think there is a fix. Like we can say they just have to cut costs. Okay, well, guess what Apple's going to do? Apple's going to cut the amount of RAM that your phone comes with in half. And then they'll tell you that it's to save power. It's a feature. Yeah, they'll come out with a smaller SKU of the PS5. It's going to be the PS5 mini. And it like runs games at half the resolution or something. Like they're going to do weird stuff like that. There's not really an easy fix because this is all based on massive institutional pressures. There's just not much you can do. And it's not like, oh, well, just they need to have another company come in and manufacture more DRAM. Okay. A plant takes 10 years to build. Not that easy. It's not that easy. So I just, I think realistically for next year, we're just going to see hardware sales continue to plummet and tank. If I were releasing a game like a Duskbloods, I'd be nervous because we're all talking like the debate for Duskbloods, for example, being it's the From Software exclusive Switch 2 game. We've always been saying, okay, so it's $500 for a console, and then it's another $100 for a Pro controller, and then you have to get the Nintendo Online membership, which is $30 for the year, and then you have to get the game itself, which is probably going to be $80. Like you're starting to already get upwards of like $700, very, very quickly. Just for that. Maybe you end up with 800 if you're getting, one more game or extra stuff. With these types of price hikes, I mean, you could seriously end up in a situation where the Switch 2, the cost for them is at like $700-800. Insanity. But that's where we're going to be. It's just it. And if you doubt it, people were saying it was crazy to think that like they'd be raising prices on Xboxes and PS5s. Like, no, prices go down through the generation. Why on earth would they raise prices? Man, it's crazy. So everybody be sad if you are thinking about upgrading hardware. I'm at this point, not financial advice, but I'm convinced that it's going to get a good bit worse. I think, oh, Romeo's barking out the window. He can hear me. I think we're going to see PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, pretty much every PC manufacturer of components. I think they're all going to see price hikes. So 10 years to build a plant, better get crunching. Yeah. The AI and memory inflation prices will be a big bubble burst as GPU was with crypto mining. When the bubble burst and everyone was selling GPUs at a quarter of the price, give it 2 to 3 years max. Yeah. So with a bubble, when it pops, there will specifically, the other thing with this is that with data center usage specifically, if they're using H100 chips or whatever from NVIDIA, that's not something that like you can just go and buy and put in your PC. So when those become useless because the new generation is way better, it's probably not going to matter that much. I think more realistically what will happen is that Google's TPUs are going to become way more widespread and popular. And I think those TPUs will start to undermine NVIDIA's efforts. And I do think eventually there will be a little bit of calming down. I think a lot of companies are going to be like, why are we spending $100 billion on this when our customers hate it? What are we doing? How long do you think somebody can hold on to a 5090 before upgrading at this point? Months, probably. I mean, that's pretty weak. No, I think if you upgrade to a 40 or 50 series, you're going to be set for the rest of the generation. Like, don't mess with it. Don't panic. Like, if you don't need to upgrade, just don't upgrade. Play your games at 1440p and you're fine. Like, you don't need to upgrade. But what's going to happen is people are going to hear about all this stuff and probably watch this segment and video, and they're going to start to panic, and they're going to be like, oh my God, I got to go upgrade now, and I'm going to empty my savings. Don't do that. Don't do it. Okay. Yes, things will get more expensive, but then they'll get cheaper, and this is how it goes. You know, these types of things happen. It is true. The comparison to the Bitcoin mining is probably fair, because what happened back then was that everybody was buying GPUs to mine Bitcoin, and then that whole thing crashed. And so they started selling their GPUs. The difference was they were using consumer grade GPUs that when they hit the market, you could go buy and then use. They were pretty heavily utilized at that point. They had been under load pretty heavily for, a year straight, but you could go pick one up and it was fine. With this, the GPUs that are being bought are not ones you'd use for gaming. I mean, these are like $50,000 GPUs. I mean, they're crazy. So when if a bubble pops and those hit the market, they'd still be very expensive and they wouldn't be good for what you're using them for. And that's why this is different, is that it's institutional. It's not retail. It's a different thing. Because what's happening, and the reason all these prices will go up, is not because, everybody's swarming the market, buying up all of the GPUs, all the memory, all the RAM sticks. That's not what's happening. The manufacturers are not making as much for consumers because the data centers need more. So the only way it stops is if the data centers stop ordering. And I'm not sure if they will, I'm not sure if they will. There's entire government contracts in the form of billions and billions of dollars built on these things. And the other piece of it, for the AI bubble to pop, if/when it pops, there's probably going to be a lot of other very serious, probably more concerning things going on that will be a much bigger deal than and buying a GPU will be pretty low on your priority list, because if the world economy goes upside down, you may not be thinking, let's upgrade a GPU. What's going to happen to the Steam machine? It's going to be way more expensive than you think it is, or it's just delayed until prices go low. But I think the Steam machine is going to be a lot more expensive than people think it's going to be. He took my thing.